He was told he was too small. He was told he did not have the look. He was told that no matter how hard he worked, he would never make it to the main roster of WWE. Promoters laughed him out of rooms. Trainers told him to find another career. And yet, years later, that exact same man stood in the center of the ring with the entire arena chanting his name, holding championship gold above his head, proving every single person who doubted him completely and devastatingly wrong. This is the story of how a man with absolutely nothing became one of the biggest legends professional wrestling has ever seen. Welcome back to Wrestling Decoded, the channel that digs past the highlight reels and gives you the real, raw, complete story behind the biggest names in this business. If you have not subscribed yet, now is the perfect time, because this story is exactly why this channel exists. Every legend starts somewhere, and almost never does it start with privilege or a guaranteed path to stardom. This particular story begins in a small town, far away from the bright lights and packed arenas that would eventually define this man's career. He grew up without connections in the wrestling industry, no family name to open doors, no financial backing to fast-track his training, just a burning, almost obsessive desire to become something the world told him he could never be. From a young age, he was drawn to professional wrestling in a way that bordered on obsession. While other kids were focused on typical hobbies, he was recording matches, studying psychology in the ring, analyzing why certain performers connected with crowds while others fell completely flat. He was not just a fan, he was a student long before anyone ever gave him permission to call himself a wrestler. When he finally got the courage to walk into his first wrestling school, the reception was brutal. Trainers looked at his frame and immediately dismissed him. He did not have the prototypical look that promotions were searching for at the time. He was either too small, too unconventional, or simply did not fit the mold that decision makers had in their heads for what a future star should look like. Most people would have walked away right there. He did not. Instead, he doubled down. He trained harder than everyone else in that building. He showed up earlier and left later. He took bumps that left him bruised for days, absorbed criticism that would have crushed most aspiring performers, and kept coming back for more because he believed with absolute certainty that he was meant for something bigger than what anyone around him could see. The independent wrestling circuit became his proving ground, and it was anything but glamorous. We are talking about wrestling in front of crowds of 50 people in half-empty community centers, driving hours between towns in a beat-up car, sleeping in that same car some nights because there was not enough money for a hotel room, getting paid in cash that barely covered gas money. This was the reality of his journey, and it lasted for years, not months. But here is what separated him from countless others who attempted the same grueling path. He never let the conditions define his work ethic inside that ring. Every single match, regardless of the size of the crowd or the quality of the venue, he performed as if he were headlining the biggest stage in the world. That mentality did not go unnoticed. Slowly, word started spreading through the tight-knit wrestling community. People started talking about this performer who brought main event intensity to even the smallest of shows. Eventually, that reputation reached the right ears. He started getting opportunities at bigger independent promotions, then regional television tapings, then finally the kind of exposure that put him on the radar of national companies. But even then, the doubt followed him. Scouts who watched his tape still questioned whether he had what it took to succeed on a national stage. Some said his style would not translate. Some said the crowd reaction at small shows would not hold up in front of larger, more demanding audiences. When he finally signed with WWE, the doubt did not magically disappear. If anything, it intensified. He was placed in developmental, surrounded by performers who on paper had more obvious physical gifts and more conventional star power. Coaches pushed him hard, sometimes brutally so, testing whether he genuinely had what it took, or whether he would crack under the pressure of an entirely new level of competition. He did not crack. He adapted, he absorbed every piece of coaching, refined every aspect of his in-ring work, and continued building the one thing that no amount of natural physical gifts could replicate: genuine connection with an audience. Fans in developmental shows started noticing him. They started reacting to him in ways that surprised even the coaches who had initially overlooked his potential. When he finally got the call to the main roster, it still was not a guaranteed path to stardom. Early opportunities were limited. He was given short segments, minor storylines, chances that most performers would consider insignificant in the grand scheme of a WWE career. but every single time he was given even a sliver of opportunity, he made the absolute most of it. He understood something that many performers never grasp. It is not about how much time you are given, it is about what you do with the time you have. Slowly, the tide began to turn. Crowds started reacting differently when his music hit. Social media started buzzing after his segments. Internal WWE conversations started shifting from whether he belonged on the roster to how far he could realistically go. The same trainers and decision makers who once doubted his potential were now watching closely, recognizing that they may have completely underestimated what this man was capable of. The turning point came when WWE finally gave him a storyline with real stakes, real depth, and real opportunity to showcase everything he had been building toward for years. He delivered in a way that silenced every single critic who had ever questioned his potential. The matches were not just technically sound, they carried genuine emotional weight that audiences across the United States connected with on a deeply personal level. People who had never followed his career before suddenly became invested. People who had watched him struggle for years on the independent scene finally got to witness the payoff they always believed was coming. His championship victory, when it finally arrived, was not just a moment of personal triumph. It became a symbol for every performer in this industry who has ever been told they were not good enough, not big enough, not marketable enough to make it to the top. Arenas across the country erupted in ways that went beyond typical wrestling crowd reactions. People were genuinely emotional because they understood the journey behind that moment. They understood exactly what he had sacrificed, exactly what he had endured, and exactly how many people had told him this moment would never happen. What makes this story so powerful is not simply the championship win itself. It is everything that led up to it. The years of rejection, the financial struggles, the physical toll on his body, the mental exhaustion of constantly proving himself to people who had already made up their minds about his potential. This is the part of the story that highlight reels never fully capture, and it is exactly the part of the story that Wrestling Decoded exists to tell. His legacy today extends far beyond championships and accolades. He has become a symbol of perseverance for an entire generation of aspiring wrestlers who do not fit the traditional mold. Young performers training in small wrestling schools across the country look at his journey as proof that the system, despite all its flaws and biases, can still be overcome through relentless dedication and an unshakable belief in your own potential. That is the real story behind the legend, not a fairy tale of instant success, but a brutal, honest journey of someone who refused to accept the limitations the world tried to place on him. That is going to do it for today's episode of Wrestling Decoded. If this story moved you the way it moved me while researching it, smash that like button right now. It genuinely helps this channel reach more wrestling fans who need to hear stories exactly like this one. Subscribe to Wrestling Decoded if you have not already, and ring that notification bell so you never miss an upload. Drop a comment below and let me know which underdog story in wrestling history inspired you the most, because this community always brings incredible perspective to these conversations. Until next time, keep believing in the journey, because sometimes the people the world counts out the most end up becoming the legends we remember forever.